All right. Being that it is episode 76, we start on the football field where a lot of jerseys in the 70s, late 60s have predominantly been. And we'll start with one of the greatest offensive tackles of his generation, Orlando Pace. It's a high school, he was a great high school player, which led to him attending the Ohio State University, only the second true freshman to start on opening day for the Buckeyes. What Pace did at Ohio State was just incredible. Big Ten Freshman of the Year, he'd rack up tons of accolades. Two-time first team All Big Ten, twice Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year, two-time unanimous All-American. The senior season, Pace went on to win the Big Ten MVP, Jim Parker Trophy, Lineman of the Year, Outland Trophy, Lombardi Award for the second year in a row, and even finished fourth in the voting for the Heisman, which is very, very rare for a lineman. They called him the Pancake Man for his continuance of knocking people on their back as a pancake block. And the dominance at the college level led to the St. Louis Rams taking Orlando Pace with the number one overall pick in the 97 draft. They really wanted Pace, traded with the New York Jets to get that pick, and he became the first lineman to go number one since Ron Yary, who you may remember from episode 73, did it back in 1968. After a brief holdout, Pace would sign a deal with the Rams to start his professional career, and it took a few games to get the start, but once he did, he never looked back. He'd go on to make 7 consecutive Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, 2 second-team All-Pros. He was an important piece of the Rams team that won Super Bowl 34 over the Titans. He blocked for 3 consecutive MVPs, Kurt Warner in 99 and 2001, with Marshall Faulk sandwiched in the middle for 2000. The Rams really did have the greatest show on turf for a while there, and he spent almost his entire career with the Rams, signing with the Bears in the latter stages of his career, but injuries would eventually cause him to retire from the game. He was named to the NFL 2000s All-Decade Team, and in retirement, he was inducted into the College and Pro Football Hall of Fame. Again, one of the best offensive tackles of his generation. We jump to the Ren City Time Machine for our next 76 mention. Legendary offensive tackle and place kicker, Lou Groza, who, just like our first mention, went to The Ohio State University. We played offensive tackle as well as place kicker. He'd enlisted in the Army as World War II intensified, doing basic training in Texas before being sent the 96th Infantry Division to serve as a surgical technician in Okinawa and other places during the Pacific Theater in 1945. The first day he landed in Philippines, he witnessed a soldier getting shot in the face. Witnessing all kinds of injuries, he said he just became used to it. And while he was in the military, Groza received a package from Paul Brown, the Ohio State football coach, who had sent footballs and a contract for Groza to join Brown in the All America Football Conference, a precursor to the NFL. And after the war ended, Groza would join the Browns to start his career, fitting in with a very successful Browns team, even though he was just kicking at that point. And his great kicking earned him the nickname the Toe. His approach was just toe blasting those kicks, and he was a weapon, hitting a 53-yarder, which was the longest in pro history for a while. And after a few seasons of just kicking, he moved to the offensive line where he was the dual threat with the Browns. And in the AAFC, they dominated, winning 4 consecutive titles. One of those seasons, Groza was all second team All AAFC while leading the league in points scored. Once the NFL came, Groza continued to be a part of the Browns' success, winning 4 NFL championships. It looked he would retire only having 3 after a back injury, but after a few seasons away from the game, he'd return to the Browns for his last championship and eventually retiring for good at the age of 44. A day he called the saddest day of my football life. But during his tenure, 4 time first team All Pro, 2 time second team All Pro, 9 Pro Bowls, NFL scoring leader, like I said, one of those seasons. He was named to the 1950s All Decade Team. 50th anniversary NFL all-time team, the Cleveland Browns, honored him by immortalizing him in their Ring of Honor, and they've retired his number 76. Groza would get inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame for his great play, and a lot of people question how he'd kick the ball, but the straight-ahead kicks worked for him. He even at times used a piece of adhesive tape to help target his kicking spot. But as years went on, kickers left that style for more of the soccer-style approach that we see today. But Groza's impact on the field will always be remembered, and it was sad in November of 2000 when Groza would pass away at the age of 76, not long after a heart attack. That following season, the Browns honored him by wearing the 76 on their helmets. Staying with this Ren City time machine, we go to the next 76 mention for a guy who spent his entire career with one franchise, the Detroit Lions. I'm talking about another former offensive tackle named Lou. This time, Lou Creekmer. Creekmer played college football at the College of William and Mary. Although his college education was interrupted for military service, but once returning to school, he'd helped the team to some success, earning second team All SoCon while in school. The Eagles selected him in the 26th round of the 1948 draft, but he stayed in school playing 2 more seasons at William and Mary, and before the 1950 season, he was acquired by the Lions, where, as I mentioned, he played his entire career there. Initially starting at offensive tackle before getting moved to the guard, he'd thrive, making the Lions one of the best teams in the NFL, helping them to 3 NFL championships. During this time, Creekmer would earn 6 first-team All-Pros as well as a single second-team All-Pro, 8 consecutive Pro Bowls over that time, and the Lions honored him by naming him to the Pride of the Lions, to the Lions' 75th anniversary team, and to the Detroit Lions all-time team. After his 32nd year of eligibility, Lou Creekmer finally got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and at the time he said, "I kept falling through the cracks." He passed away at 82 in July of 2009, and he was diagnosed with CTE after passing, following a 30-year decline of cognition. Oh my goodness, I can't say it. As mentioned about a few different football players who have passed away on these jersey mentions, Creekmer was one of at least 345 NFL players diagnosed after death with CTE. Excuse me. Before we stray too far from this time machine, let's honor former number 76 Marlon Motley. He played a fullback linebacker combo, enrolling at South Carolina State College and HBCU, where he transferred to the University of Nevada, and he was a star on the team, lighting it up against tough competition, but sustaining an injury in 1943 and returning home to Canton, Ohio after dropping out of school. And as World War II intensified, just like the 2 players I mentioned before, he joined the military, joined the Navy in 44, and during his time at the Great Lakes Naval Training Station, he played for the Great Lakes Navy Blue Jackets, military team coached by the popular in this jersey mention Paul Brown. He was serving Navy during an extended leave from his job as head coach of Ohio State, and Motley lit it up under Brown, especially with a new play Brown was working on, something that looks like the draw play of today. And Motley would go off to war, and upon returning, he began working at a steel mill, planning on returning to Reno to finish his college degree at Nevada. Except that summer, Paul Brown was coaching a new team, as we mentioned, the Browns, during the Lou Groza mention, and Motley reached out to his former coach about a tryout. Brown said the team was filled at the position, but after Brown signed Bill Willis, another African-American star, he gave Motley a tryout. Motley figured it was because Willis needed a roommate or something, but he did well in his tryout, making the team, and with those Browns, he'd win all 4 championships in the 4-year window of the AAFC, leading the league in yards one year and co-sharing the lead in touchdowns the following season. There's still very divided times in the world. When Willis and Motley on the Browns, they brought a diverse crowd to the games at least, and the Browns would go on to win the NFL championship in 1950, beating the Rams. After that championship season, the hard running up the middle started to give its wear and tear on Motley, and injuries started to add up. He'd take the 1954 season off, attempting a comeback with the Steelers the following season, but his rights were still with the Browns, so he'd have to get traded to Pittsburgh. And the multi-talented Motley just played linebacker his lone season in Pittsburgh, but what a career he had. 1950 champion, Pro Bowl, and led the NFL in rushing, made 2 first-team All-Pros, 2 second-team All-Pros, named in the NFL 1940s All-Decade Team, 75th and 100th anniversary All-Time Team. The Browns honored him by putting Motley in their Ring of Honor. He wore 41 in Nevada, and the Wolfpack retired at 41 there. You get enshrined to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, becoming just the 2nd player voted into the Hall of color. Emlyn Lewis Tunnel, the Gremlin, being the first. It was a cool moment for Motley, as the Hall happens to be in his hometown of Canton, Ohio. Unfortunately, Motley would pass away in 99, 22 days after his 79th birthday, passing away from prostate cancer. One of the best running backs of the early days of football, and someone who probably isn't talked about enough. That's why we do these jersey mentions. Plus, I just love sports history and I like to share it. with anyone that'll listen. Again, we go to an offensive tackle for our next 76. Bob Brown. No, not Whitney's ex Bobby. This is Bob the Boomer Brown. The Ohio-born Brown would go on to play football at the University of Nebraska, where he played as a backup lineman and outside linebacker his first season, but the following season he became a starter at offensive tackle while still playing linebacker. As a sophomore, Brown helped seal the 1962 Cotham Bowl, the program's first bowl win, with an interception in the last minute. His senior season, he was a unanimous All-American, becoming the first black All-American at Nebraska. He'd earned two first-team All-Big 8 honors during his time there, and that would get him drafted by both leagues. The Eagles would select Brown with the second overall pick in the '64 NFL draft, while the Broncos would select him fourth overall. Brown would choose the former, electing to sign with the NFL's Eagles, and after his rookie season in Philly, Brown would earn All-Rookie Team nod, as well as a second-team All-Pro selection. During his time in Philly, he'd also earned one more second-team All-Pro, as well as three first-team All-Pros, suiting up for three Pro Bowls during his time as an Eagle. And after requesting a trade, Bob Brown was sent to the Los Angeles Rams, where he'd make two first-team All-Pros and two more Pro Bowls in his time there. Then he get traded to the Raiders, where he'd wrap up his career, not before earning two more second-team All-Pro selections and another Pro Bowl spot. Bob Brown was one of the best offensive tackles during his playing days and received many accolades for it. Being named in the NFL 1960s All-Decade Team, the Eagles honored Brown by putting him in their Hall of Fame. And for his amazing play in college, Brown's number 64 he wore at Nebraska was retired. And he was inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame. We all know Bob Brown for wearing the number 76 in the pros, and that's the number we think of when he was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Fortunately, Bob Brown suffered a stroke in April of 2023, where he went into a rehab center before passing away at the age of 81. An underrated offensive tackle that I really enjoyed learning more about, diving more into that. And as we continue with the 76s in the NFL, we move to the defensive side, honoring longtime Chicago Bear legend Steve McMichael, or Mongo as he was known. He'd go on to play college football at the University of Texas, where he played defensive tackle for the Longhorns. His freshman season, he was dealt with a tough blow of dealing with the death of his stepfather, but he'd deal with that adversity and go on to have a great career at Texas, earning second team All SWC, back-to-back first team All SWC selections, unanimous All-American his senior season, which led to the Patriots drafting him in the third round in the 1980 NFL draft. McMichael would play one season with the Patriots before getting cut for his second season. The Bears would sign him as a free agent, and he'd go on to become one of their best starting tackles and helping them to Super Bowl 20. Mongo was part of one of the best defensive units ever. Excuse me. McMichael was selected to two first-team All-Pros, three second-team All-Pros, while appearing in two Pro Bowls. He made a name for himself with the Bears, but his last professional season he joined their rival, the Packers. And he was hindered by physical issues his whole career and didn't live up to his usual play before retiring. And in retirement, he said, "For 13 years, I helped the Bears beat the Packers every year. I whooped their ass, right? So the last year, I went up there on my last leg, and I wasn't good anymore. So I stole their money and whooped their ass again." Loved by Chicago, especially against with that rivalry with the Packers. But McMichael was named one of the top 100 greatest Bears of all time, named the Bears all-time team, and in retirement, he made the transition to professional wrestler, making a name for himself in the WCW, where he was part of the legendary Four Horsemen. And while in the WCW, he'd become WCW United States Heavyweight Champion. Other than being known in the squared circle, McMichael dipped into coaching in the Continental Indoor Football League, leading the Chicago Slaughter to a championship over the Fort Wayne Freedom. Tell me if you knew about them. I didn't even know about that league, but good on him. Later in life, though, McMichael would get diagnosed with ALS, which has deteriorated him quite a bit physically. It's tough to see what that disease can do to a human. There was some joy in the McMichael family recently, though, as he finally made it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame this past year. The formal induction just done on August 3rd. It was great to witness such an honor. McMichael's only 66 years old, though, and the battle he's going through, yikes. I feel for him and his family. Congrats to Mongo for getting it in there. Even as a longtime Packers fan, you got to respect the greats here. The next 76 jersey mentioned, much more recent. A guy I remember watching dominate on the offensive line. Another Steve. Talking about former guard Steve Hutchinson. Hutchinson played college football at the University of Michigan. And while there, he picked up tons of individual accolades on a very good Michigan team that racked up wins. During his time with the Wolverines, Hutchinson was part of a Rose Bowl championship, which led to a national championship, an Orange Bowl championship, and 2 Florida Citrus Bowl. Like myself, he's a big fan of bowls. And yeah, he'd at his 4 years at Michigan, 4-time first team All Big Ten player, picking up nods, first team All American, unanimous All American, winning the Jim Parker Trophy. That amazing resume led to the Seahawks drafting Hutchinson 17th overall in the 2001 draft. With the Seahawks, Hutchinson was one of the best blockers in the game, making the All-Rookie team, and then he'd make 3 Pro Bowls while picking up a second-team All-Pro and 2 first-team All-Pros. His last season in Seattle, Hutchinson helped block for running back Shaun Alexander on his way to 2005 MVP. The Seahawks ended up losing to the Steelers in Super Bowl 40 at the end of that season, and that was the last time Hutchinson would suit up in a Seahawk uniform. Free agency, Hutchinson would elect to leave the Seahawks for the Minnesota Vikings, and there was some controversy surrounding the offer sheet from the Vikings. The offer was believed to be the richest contract ever offered to a guard at the time, and the offer sheet contained a poison pill provision, which I was very intrigued by the name of, and that would have guaranteed his entire salary if he was not the highest paid lineman on a team. At the time, NFL rules required that if a team signed a player with a transition tag to an offer sheet, the original team had to either match that sheet or relinquish the rights to the player. During this time, the Seahawks had given tackle Walker Jones a contract richer than what was offered to Hutchinson. So if the team triggered the poison pill clause, it would immediately guarantee Hutchinson's salary, which would have obliterated the Seahawks salary cap. So Hutchinson was Minnesota bound for sure, and the Seahawks would receive no compensation for losing one of the best linemen in the game. The Seahawks did get something from Minnesota, though. They signed Vikings wide receiver Nate Burleson to a similar deal. The NFL was like, okay, enough of poison pills. They got that clause out of the league now. So with the Vikings, Hutchinson would go on to play 59 straight games, not missing a start, making 4 Pro Bowls, 1 second-team All-Pro, 3 first-team All-Pros. And after his time in Minnesota, Hutchinson would sign with the Titans to wrap up his professional career. He was named to the NFL 2000s All-Decade team, named one of the 50 greatest Vikings. He was so good in college and the pros that he was inducted into both the College and Pro Football Hall of Fames. A guy's name we should probably talk about more when we talk about the best guards to play in the NFL. We'll stick with NFL guards, sticking with Steve's. The next 76 on our list, Steve Wisniewski. Wisniewski would play college football at the University of Penn State, where he was a standout at the guard position for the Nittany Lions. Big contributor to the national championship winning team in '86. Also picking up individual accolades, earning second team All-East, first team All-East, and first team All-American selections. That great play led to the Cowboys selecting Wisniewski in the second round of the '89 NFL draft, where he was immediately shipped off to the LA Raiders, where he'd spend his entire career with the Raiders, from LA to Oakland. During his 13 seasons there, he'd earned the nickname The Wiz, probably because it's easier to say than Wisniewski. He'd make 8 Pro Bowls while also getting selected to 6 second-team All-Pros and 2 first-team All-Pros. Named to the NFL 1990s All-Decade team, Wisniewski returned to the Raiders as an offensive line coach in 2011. However, after the passing of longtime Raiders owner Al Davis, he'd resigned due to personal reasons for the following season's training camp. He has not made the College or Pro Football Hall of Fame, but I don't know if his resume would quite match up with people in his position. I don't know if he'll be a lock for the Halls, but I think he has a chance. Looking at the resume, you can't dismiss it yet. And you guessed it, another great guard to don the 76, longtime New York Giant Chris Snee. Played college football at Boston College, where he'd forgo his senior season and enter the NFL draft, where the Giants selected in the second round, the 2004 draft. Having a little family connection with the team, as Giants head coach at the time, Tom Coughlin, was Chris Snee's father-in-law. He had an immediate impact with the Giants, making the all-rookie team. He'd make it to 4 Pro Bowls, picking up 2 second-team All-Pros, 1 first-team All-Pro, and he was involved in 2 massive Super Bowl wins. First, Super Bowl 42, where the Giants were the massive underdogs beating unbeaten New England. And then Snee helped block for Eli Manning, who would, again, knock off the Patriots in the Super Bowl. 2 Super Bowl rings he can hang over Tom Brady, who would have who could have had 9 Super Bowls if it wasn't for those Giants teams. But Snead's career was pretty solid. I don't see him making a Hall of Fame of anything like that. But I could see the Giants honoring him. But he has been a scout for the Jaguars, and yeah, he did go to Boston College, his alma mater, to be an analyst. But now Chris Snead is a scout again for the New York Giants, the team he used to play for. Next 76 on our list, we go a little younger. The Atlanta Falcons starting offensive tackle Caleb McGarry. Washington-born McGarry would play collegiate football in his home state, the University of Washington, with the Huskies, where he earned back-to-back first-team All-Pac-12 selections. In the senior season, he won the Morris Trophy. It was a great play in Washington, led to the Falcons selecting him at the 31st pick in the first round of the 2019 draft. Falcons traded up to draft him, and after splitting reps in week 1 of his rookie season, he ended up taking the job for the rest of the year. He signed a 3-year contract extension with Atlanta before the start of last season, and there's pressure on him to try to keep Kirk Cousins healthy. We know a 36-year-old coming off an Achilles injury isn't exactly mobile, so lots of pressure on McGarry to keep his quarterback's jersey clean. Our final 76 mention from the NFL, again, comes from the offensive line. He's got some lineage in the NFL. I'm talking about New York Giants guard Jon Runyan Jr. His dad, John Sr., played offensive tackle in the league for many years before becoming a U.S. congressman. And John Jr. would go on to play football at the University of Michigan, where he'd earned back-to-back first-team All-Big Ten selections, leading to the Green Bay Packers selecting him in the 6th round of the 2020 NFL Draft. Runyan Jr. played sparingly as first, but improved as a player and got more reps with the Packers, but he left after last season to sign a deal with the New York Giants, where he'll be the starting left guard this season, if he is back in time from a shoulder injury he's been dealing with. And Giants head coach Brian Daboll believes he will be ready to go for Week 1. We leave the NFL for a solo MLB mention. Boston Red Sox right-hand pitcher Zach Kelly. 29-year-old's having a pretty good season for the Sox. Played college baseball in the NCAA Division II, suiting up for the Concord University Mountain Lions. After his sophomore season, he transferred to Newberry College, another Div 2 squad, leading him to go undrafted in the 2017 MLB draft. But he signed with the Oakland A's as an undrafted free agent for a $500 signing bonus. Yeah, you heard that. He'd pitch in the rookie-level Arizona League before getting released by the A's. He said, "My first year, I probably paid to play, to be honest with you. I definitely lost money." He would then sign with the Los Angeles Angels, bouncing around the minor leagues for various teams before getting released during the COVID-19 shutdown season. He'd undergo surgery soon after, and then he'd sign a minor league contract with the Boston Red Sox, spending the year playing with the Portland Sea Dogs and then in AAA with Worcester Red Sox. Following season, he'd get an invite to training camp before going back to Worcester to start the season. And then he'd get a call up making his MLB debut, finally. And he'd start the season in the bullpen, but sustained an injury, missing most of the season due to nerve issues, which put him back in the AAA. But he's worked his way back into the Red Sox lineup. Like I said, he's pitched pretty well this season, and he's had a tough road to get here, and he's going to try to help the Red Sox get into the postseason. We'll go from the diamond to the hockey rink, starting with one of the most famous 76s on our list. You may recognize him for being on TV now, but PK Subban was the real deal on the ice. The Toronto-born Subban played with the Belleville Bulls of the OHL. Great numbers, leading the Canadiens, drafting him 43rd overall in the 2007 draft. Following season with Belleville, he'd help lead them to the J. Ross Robertson Cup, which is the OHL championship. But his team would fall to the Kitchener Rangers in 7 games. He'd play one more season with the Bulls, making to the OHL semifinals before signing with the Canadiens, where he'd start his pro career the AHL affiliate Hamilton Bulldogs. He'd play so well, he'd get selected to the AHL All-Star game, and soon after, he'd get his first NHL call-up, where he got an assist in his debut against the Flyers. He'd go back to the AHL to finish out the year, but get recalled to the Canadiens during their first-round playoffs against the Capitals, where Subban would record his first playoff point and assist in his first NHL playoff game. He'd score his first goal in the second round of those same playoffs against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and later in the series, Subban would become the third rookie defenseman in Canadiens history to register 3 assists in one game. Montreal would end up losing the series to Pittsburgh, but PK left his mark on the hockey world and showed the world what he could do. And although the Canadiens were eliminated from the NHL playoffs, the Bulldogs were still in contention in the AHL Calder Cup playoffs. And at the end of the season, Subban was awarded the AHL President's Award for all the stuff he had done in the season in the AHL. The next season was Subban's true rookie season, and he'd become the first Canadiens rookie to record a hat trick in a game, doing so in a win over Minnesota. In Montreal, Subban made the all-rookie team, an all-star team, and won the Norris Trophy in 2013 for being the best defenseman in the league. This led to him becoming, at the time, the highest-paid defenseman in the league. He was the face of the franchise, and although they had some good playoff runs, they never made the Stanley Cup. Then in the summer of 2016, he never won a Stanley Cup, sorry. Then in the summer of 2016, we'd see a blockbuster move. PK Subban, who spent his entire career with Montreal, was going to Nashville. Predators sent their star defenseman, Shea Weber, in the blockbuster deal, and with Subban, the Preds made it to the 2017 Stanley Cup Finals, but were ultimately beaten by the Penguins in 6 games. And after some good seasons in Nashville, Subban got traded to the New Jersey Devils, where he had one of his worst statistical years, and he'd retire a few seasons later. Subban's also represented Canada at an international level, where he's picked up some gold medals, 2 gold medals at the World Junior level, and was a member of the 2014 Olympic gold medal winning team that Canada won in Sochi, Russia. And like I said, top of Subban's talk here. He's known for what he does on TV. He's so charismatic and just seems awesome, speaking from the heart and loves sports. He's also been a role model to many people of color, demonstrating how everyone can play in the NHL. Saying that, I'd be naive to ignore the racism PK has gone through to get where he is in life. Not saying that adversity built him to the person he is today, because that's messed up what people can say about athletes. But he's a great guy. I'm glad you get to see him on NHL on ESPN if you get that coverage here and there. But our next and final number 6 mention from the NHL, current player, defenseman Brady Skjei. He grew up playing in the USA Hockey National Team Development Program, leading to the Rangers drafting him in the 2012 entry draft. He'd go on to play college hockey at the University of Minnesota, but after a few seasons in college, he'd sign a contract to join the Rangers. And after joining the franchise, he'd start his professional career in the AHL with the Hartford Wolfpack. And after some injuries to the Rangers, Skjei would get called up to the big leagues, playing well and even making some playoff appearances. His role with the team grew as well as his numbers, and then he'd sign a 6-year deal with the Rangers. But after just a few seasons into that deal, he'd get traded to the Hurricanes. And with the Hurricanes, he's worked his way into one of the better two-way defensemen in the league, which led to the Nashville Predators signing him to a big 7-year deal this past free agency to join the team. We'll see how he fits in with his new team up in this upcoming season. A rare occurrence in these jersey mentions lately, some NBA love. First 76 wearer from basketball is one of the tallest people we've covered on our podcast. Sean Bradley was born in Germany while his father was working in a U.S. military hospital. And he had tall parents. His dad's 6'8", mother 6 foot. I don't think anyone expected Sean Bradley to grow to 7'6". Growing up in Utah, his family was raised Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he used his crazy height to develop into one of the best players in Utah history. Named Utah Mr. Basketball, he'd go on to play college ball at Brigham Young. Well, at BYU, he was named WAC Freshman of the Year, second team All-WAC. Also led the NCAA in blocks that season, leading to the Philadelphia 76ers drafting Bradley second overall in the 93 NBA draft. Living the novelty of being 7'6" on a franchise named the 76ers, it was only fitting that Bradley would wear the 76. With inconsistencies on scoring and rebound, you could always count on the lanky Bradley to block shots, and that helped get him named to the all-rookie second team. Despite suffering a season-ending dislocated kneecap later in the season, Bradley would have some pretty amazing moments, and when he was at his best, he impacted the game on so many levels. It was just that inconsistency, though. It frustrated the 76ers to the point where they traded Bradley to the Nets. With the Nets, he'd have some monster games, including his first career triple-double at 19 points, 17 boards, 11 blocks. But with a new coaching staff coming in, Bradley's massive size didn't fit in with the future plans. So he'd get traded again, even after leading the league in blocks for the Nets at 4 per game. This time, Bradley was traded to the Mavericks, where he'd match his career high in points, 32, with a season-high 16 boards in the same game, but he just couldn't do that consistently. Again, frustrating more coaching staffs. The one constant, though, like I said, was his shot blocking. If he wasn't blocking your shot, he was making you think about it. And he had some damn good games. But Bradley, being at his height, was always a target for the high flying dunkers. He literally had a poster target on his chest. Even so much that in the 30 for 30 short documentary called Posterized, they talk about it quite a bit. An exhibition of players who have been on the receiving end of thunderous poster dunks. His bigger movie role was in the 1997 gem Space Jam, and in retirement, Bradley was known for his philanthropy and loved to be on his bicycle. However, in January of 2021, disaster struck. Bradley was struck from behind by a motorist while he was riding his bike near his home in Utah. Bradley survived, but he suffered a traumatic spinal cord injury that has left him paralyzed. He's remained optimistic, but he's described his height as a hindrance to his recovery. There hasn't been a lot of situations where you have someone at 7'6" becoming a quadriplegic, so this is new territory in the science world even, but one of the best shot blockers the game's ever seen, a poster boy for posters, someone that should be remembered for his play rather than a target for the game's best dunkers. Although I do remember Doug Collins vividly going, "Sean Bradley," after the big man was dunked on by Tracy McGrady, a dunk that also prompted broadcaster Kevin Harlan to go, "McGrady has sucked the gravity out of the building." Love it. But our last jersey mention, it's another basket one, not the most recognizable name, but he wore the number last year in Portland. I'm talking about Taze Moore. Tennessee-born Moore would go on to play college basketball at Cal State Bakersfield, and with the Roadrunners, he'd earn all Big West honors. But then, after dealing with some injuries, he'd go on the transfer portal, where he joined the University of Houston, playing for the Cougars under head coach Kelvin Sampson. He was a starter, a very good Cougars team, averaging double figures his lone season there. He'd go undrafted in the 2022 NBA draft, and although he had a stint with the Brooklyn Nets Summer League team, he'd go overseas to join BG Göttingen in the German basketball Bundesliga, only playing one game there before leaving. Must not have liked it. And then, since then, he was in the G League, joining the Texas Legends for a few seasons before going to the Rip City Remix. And with the Remix, he'd signed a 10-day contract with the NBA affiliate Portland Trail Blazers, becoming the first Rip City Remix player to get that call up. And after a stint back and forth with the Remix, Moore would get called up to finish the season with the Blazers, where he wore the 76. And Taze Moore would then sign with the Vancouver Bandits in the Canadian Elite Basketball League, a league I've mentioned a few times with our local Saskatoon Rattlers playing in it. And Moore lit it up in the CEBL this past season, leading the league in assists while getting named to the All-CEBL team. He was also the recipient of the 2024 CEBL Player of the Year. After collecting the MVP of that league, I'd like to see what Taze Moore could do on an NBA roster next season. Portland Trailblazers are a young team. He's been playing there, so hopefully he can get a spot on their roster.